And I couldn't believe it. I could not believe what he just said, because that's the voice that's been there my entire life. Like, that's the voice that's been telling me, you know what, Michael, you're more fun when you drink. Or, you know what, Michael, it's those people at that bar that are getting you into all this trouble. We need to go find a new bar to drink at. Or that voice that would just say, you know what, tonight we're just going to have one drink. That voice. And now this guy is sitting behind me and he's telling me that he has this voice too. And I couldn't believe it.
Well, hello, friends of Bill W. and other friends. You have landed on Sober Speak. My name is John M. I am an alcoholic, and we are glad you are all here, especially newcomers. Newcomers, that is, both to recovery as a whole and newcomers to this podcast. Sober Speak is a podcast about recovery centered around the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. My job here on Sober Speak is simple. My job is to provide a platform to the amazing stories of recovery all around us. Consider Sober Speak, if you will, your meeting between meetings. Please remember, we do not speak for AA or any 12-step community. We represent only ourselves. We are here to share our experience, strength, and hope with those who wish to come along for the ride. Take what you want and leave the rest at the curb for the trash man to pick up. Scrump delicious. That was the voice of Mr. Michael B. that you heard on the beginning of this here episode number 423 of Sober Speak, and you are going to hear so much more from Michael in just a moment. But first things first, this episode is made possible by Audrey, Mary Lynn, Laura, and Tim. And so you scratch your head and you ponder and you say to yourself, what exactly did Audrey, Mary Lynn, Laura, and Tim do to get mentioned on the top of this episode here? Well, they went to our humble little website, www.soberspeak.com. They clicked on the little yellow donation tab at the top of the website, and they made a contribution. So thank you so much, Audrey, Mary Lynn, Laura, and Tim, for making this episode number 423 possible. This here episode is coming right out to Ewans. I got a little sad. I think I've told you before that that term, Ewans, my dad was a self-proclaimed hillbilly from Tennessee, and he used to use that term all the time. And if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you will know that he passed away in June of this year, and so it just kind of made me a little nostalgic, made me a little sad there thinking about that. But anyway, let's get on with the podcast. This here, ladies and gentlemen, is the first part of two parts. First of two parts with Michael B. This one is called The Voices in My Head. Michael is from Covina, California. We discuss Michael's hippie mom, his dad, who was a deacon of the Lutheran Church, his first drink at 12 years old, his amends to his ex, living homeless, sober living, obsession of the mind, and once again, the voices in his head, and much, much more. Please keep in mind one more again that we will have the second part, and you definitely want to tune in for the second part of Michael's story next week. And we will have plenty, listener feedback at the end of this episode. Enjoy, Michael. Okay, everybody. So today we are sitting here with Mr. Michael B. from well, in fact, I'm going to let you go ahead, introduce yourself, Michael, give your sobriety date if you wish, and tell people where you live in this great land of ours, please.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Michael. I'm an alcoholic. Uh, I live in Covina, California, just about 15 miles dead east of downtown LA. My sobriety date is November 26, 2009. And yeah,
Right after Thanksgiving. I bet we'll get into that here in just a
it
second.
was
Okay.
actually it was actually Thanksgiving. Yeah,
Oh,
that year it was Thanksgiving.
that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that okay, you were referred to me by Mr. Carl M. How do you guys know each other?
He is my sponsor.
Well, that explains it.
And he's very aware that he's my sponsor. Sometimes he's painfully aware he's my sponsor.
I get it. Somebody was asking me the other day how many people I sponsor, and I was like, well, it kind of depends. I think there are a lot of people who call me their sponsor,
Hmm.
but the ones
Yeah.
who are active is, very few. But I'm sponsor in name for a lot of
Yeah.
people.
It depends on the day, right?
Yeah. And so right before we uh, started recording here, you had mentioned that you had listened to at least one of the episodes here on Sober Speak, and it was Joe C. I absolutely loved that episode recording Joe. Tell me a little bit about him, how you know him.
Well, first off, I've never met somebody who doesn't, he Joe is one of those guys where, in no matter what circle you're in AA, Joe's name comes up, everybody, just grabs their chest and go, "Oh, I love Joe so much." It's just I've never had a different interaction. But our paths kind of collided when I was around 8 years sober. I met Joe at a roundup in Palm Springs, and he's just one of those guys where uh, just you 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 instantly feel okay. You instantly feel comfortable. You instantly feel embraced and welcomed by his soul, and you're just attracted. You're drawn to that, and so yeah, we met at that at that roundup. Chatted a little bit, and then a couple months later, our lives would kind of cross.
Yeah, he's just such a special guy. The other thing I want to ask you about real quick is that painting that you have up above I think that's your right shoulder there. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
What can you explain what that is to the folks who they're not going to be able to see it, but I am curious about it. What is that?
So it's this is I like art. I like I like art that kind of like speaks to me or whatever. But this is a Victor Anthony painting that I saw in an art gallery. And it's this guy. And I was instantly the original was huge, and I could not afford it. And I saw it, and it was like $1,000, and I was thinking, I just got this brand new credit card, and I'm like, and so I am like, and I paced through kind of like, oh, I really, and it's this guy that he's got these great rings on, and he's kind of like got his hands around his lower mouth, and he's bending his lip down just a little bit, and he's just got this look. It's called uh, Servio. It's an Italian word for wisdom,
Hmm.
and I just he strikes me as he's got some tattoos around his neck, and he's just in this calm pose. And what speaks to me about this so much is that he's just he is a life experienced man, and it seems to be like through those experiences, he just doesn't care what you think,
Right.
and he's gonna go and he's successful in life in the sense of he seems to me to walk this earth a free man, just not caring about the opinions of others and the judgments of others. And so as I'm pacing through this art gallery, going, I really want this painting. I love this painting, and I'm thumbing through a rack of copies, and so then I saw this copy of it, and the copy was like $150, and so I'm like doing that.
Well, it is nice, and you're right. It is striking. I
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that, it definitely caught my eye. So that's very cool. All right, so you have and so Carl, he's your sponsor. Did you, by any chance? I know he operates sober houses. Did you ever
Mhm.
live at either of his sober? Or I think he's got three or whatever.
Yeah,
Did you ever live at any of his sober houses?
I did. It's kind of what started my journey into sobriety. I was my sister, she kind of picked me up off the streets of Hollywood where I was living, and just dropped me off on the doorstep of his sober living.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So let's go back a little bit then. So I kind of did you a little fast forward there. So okay, tell me about growing up. Wherever you want to start in terms of your journey. Kind of what led up to you getting into Alcoholics Anonymous.
yeah. I grew up in a really loving home. My parents. I have a sister who's a couple of years older than me, and just growing up, we really, our parents did what I think a really good job of just bringing us up in a loving home. They had a lot of friends who were always around, and they were good, loving people. I always say that my parents did a really good job of surrounding us with loving, good people. And so, just growing up, we just had a lot of that. We were always taught that growing up that we can be whoever and whatever we wanted to be. We were given that freedom.
Were you in California?
Yes, born and raised Southern California. I know it's rare. Everybody seems to move here.
Right.
But yeah, we were born and raised in Los Angeles area.
Wow. Okay, so you have a great home. You're growing up. You got your older sister. You have a good relationship. I'm assuming at some point it kind of started to go off the rails. When did this happen?
Um, about when I was 12 years old. That's when I got drunk for the first time. A friend of mine spent the night at my house, and we kind of got into my parents' liquor cabinet. They were always entertaining. My my mom. I semi joke about this, but it's kind of real. My mom was a hippie in the 60s and 70s, and my dad was a deacon at a Lutheran church, and I always make the joke that their marriage is the result of a joint, a Bible, and the conception of my sister. And so growing up, we kind of had that dichotomy in our household. Like Saturday nights, like the hippie commune, would come over, and they'd all party, and then on Sunday mornings we'd be in church, and that was kind of life growing up, and that's the good, loving group that was always around. That kind of was. They're still many of them are still in mine and my sister's life, but yeah. So got drunk for the first time when I was 12 years old, and I guess I always wanted to see what was on the other end of what everybody's grabbing in the parties, and so we got into my parents' liquor cabinet, and just I wanted, it was my plan, and we were taking swigs of vodka, and yeah.
So that was your first drunk, just swigs of vodka out of a bottle. How did it go?
For me, it was very successful in the sense that I got what I wanted, which was I wanted to get drunk. And my friend like uh knew we shouldn't be doing this. Took like a swig and a half, coughed, and went to bed. But I always, when that looking back on it, that's it kicked off the phenomenon of craving. I had it from that moment. Like I always say, like that you know there was this driving force behind that bottle. I couldn't stop taking swigs of it, and nothing else happened for me that night. I don't. really, I never have identified with on that night. I don't really identify with like, feeling more confident or, or feeling taller, feeling prettier, all that stuff. Um, I just remember not being just keep taking swigs, of vodka. One more swig and I'll go to bed. One more swig and I'll go to bed. And I got really, really drunk that night.
Mhm. Okay, so you had your first drunk at 12. Were you drinking every night after that, or was it kind of a
Not
long time in between?
not every night,
Yeah.
but I don't think until I was like early teens, like 14 or 15, that I really started to obsess over it. That's where I can like look back and see that the obsession really started to kick in.
Mhm.
The justifying, taking a drink, and every time that I took a drink, that phenomenon of craving would kick it. That I wouldn't be able to stop. I would drink, uh, you know, when you're a kid and it's like, okay, I could get away with two swigs and not noticing like there's any difference in the bottle, but then you get to like four, five, six swigs and you're like, Shh, they're gonna know,
Right.
So it's like I would put a little bit of water in the vodka. My mom always had iced tea in the house, so I would put iced tea in the whiskey. And
And were
so
you, participating in what we call outside issues at the same time, or
not yet. Not yet. Not until I was, like later in high school and beyond
okay,
that I got into all that stuff.
yeah. Okay, so let's go past high school then. What was going on as you're kinda getting out of school, getting into your, early adulthood, so to speak?
Oh gosh, just getting more social with the drinking and the parties, and uh, uh, yeah, out of high school, uh, um, it was just a lot of the whatever it is you're doing it at teenagers. You're going to clubs. You're going to parties. Not many 18 and over clubs at the time. So, before I was 21, it was just parties all the time, on the weekends. Weekends, starting on Friday, then the weekends are starting on Thursday. And yeah, the minute I turned 21 and could legally go into bars and clubs, I was drinking on a daily basis.
Got you. So were you still living at home?
Yes, my parents split up when I was 20, um, and yeah, spent like a year. Or so, it's a little foggy. Spent maybe a year or so at home with my mom. My dad moved out, and then and then I think I moved out, or I think maybe they sold the house.
Okay. All right, so take me up to, I don't know when you got into Alcoholics Anonymous. How many years was it till you got in?
I got in when I was 30.
When you were 30.
So
Okay. So this
yeah.
is all going on between 21 and 30, and that when you got sober, like on that Thanksgiving. So I guess give me any, I don't know, give me a thumbnail sketch of what was going on between 21 and 30 there. I mean, the ups and downs and that sort of thing.
Uh, again, drinking on a daily and on a nightly basis. I around like 22 or 23. I met a guy. We got into a relationship, and he hated my drinking. And so for while we were together, well, and we also got engaged. Um, and I just trying to control my drinking during that time, during that relationship, and that was where the real nightmare began. We had problems in our relationship, and it was all due to my drinking. All of our fights were because of my drinking. Coming home drunk again, or I'd be on my way home from work, and we would have plans for dinner, and I would stop at the bar, you know, just to say hi to everybody, and you know, and just get a quick drink, and then I wouldn't show up. I wouldn't go home for hours. That was kind of the bulk of our relationship.
Yeah. So
Constantly
how long were
disappointed.
y'all together?
Maybe like a year.
About a year.
Yeah, a year and a
Okay.
half. Yeah.
And so that was going on 22, 23. It sounds like right in that area. And so that was the kind of like the first sign, first like thing you're picking up in terms of, and he's picking up, saying, um, maybe I've got a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, my problem was him.
Yeah, because he
that
wasn't
that was my
understanding.
problem.
Right.
It's and um uh
Just curious, have you had conversations with that guy since getting sober and what his perception of it was at the time?
we didn't speak until uh I I left. We broke up. I left him. It was kind of this final ultimatum. It was after a night. Um, Pretty much our last night together was we had made dinner. We were going to stay in. We were going to watch a movie, and we were having a really nice dinner. We were just laughing, talking. We were just a couple in love, and we were having a really nice night. And I hadn't had a drink, and we were doing the dishes. We were getting ready to watch the movie, and uh, I while we were doing the dishes, I just had this thought of, wow, I'm doing really good. I haven't had a drink. I haven't needed a drink. And then that thought came in, which was, you know what, you are doing really good. You deserve a drink. You should
Mm-hmm.
go get a drink. And we would play this game of I would hide little bottles of booze and flasks all throughout the apartment, and he would find them and throw them away. And so that night there was nothing in the apartment to drink. And so I had this brilliant idea. I just had this idea of going to get popcorn for the movie. And I told him, I'll be right back. I'm going to go get popcorn for the movie. I'll be right back. And I stopped at the bar. I was just going to have a really quick drink, go to the grocery store, get popcorn, and then be home. I stopped and had a drink, and I didn't get home till probably 3:30 in the morning, and the door was locked. And the next morning, when I came to, well, the bedroom door was locked, and I passed out on the couch, and I came to, and walked into the kitchen, and there he was with that look on his face, that look of disgust, shaking his head, saying, "I can't believe you did this. How could you do this to me again? You promised and I just said, I don't know. And he told me, it's either me or the booze. And so I said, then you have to go, you know, and that was it. And we did not talk until I was about mm, 6 months sober. I found him through Facebook. I think I got onto Facebook like early, like just before I got sober, and so then I through the months we found each other on Facebook, and around the 7 or 8 month sober mark for me is when I was beginning my amends, and he was on that list.
Mm-hmm.
And so um, uh, I got in contact with him, and we got together, and I made my amends to him.
How was that conversation?
uh, Grueling, humiliating. Um, he When we were together, he was going through law school, and he became a very quite a successful attorney. And you know, it, I made amends to him. It was in San Diego where he was living at the time, or he was at the time, and I was in the area for the Southern California AA convention, and he picked me up, and we went to lunch. And he picked me up in this brand new, beautiful BMW, and here I am in like clothes that my mother had bought me, so they're not faded. I needed some dental work early on in sobriety, and I had like my front tooth was it had it was brown essentially because of it got infected and the roots died and things like that, and so and my hair was just I was just not you know
Not a
and
vision
so
for
like
you.
exactly, and uh especially a vision for my ex, you know and so yeah, he picked me up in this brand new beautiful BMW, and we had lunch, and like I said, I was just really embarrassed. It was humiliating. I had gone over with my sponsor the exact nature of my wrongs towards him, that I was to tell him how I wronged him, and what I can do to make it right.
Okay, so now you're like I don't know, 22, 23, right in that area, and you got 7 more years or so, or six, whatever it is, before you get into AA. So, what are the lowlights or the highlights of that time? Anything interesting you want to talk about before we get you into AA?
I think after that relationship with him, I no longer had to control my drinking. I could now enjoy it, and I absolutely enjoyed it. And that I started getting into some outside issues, and just the powerless and unmanageability of my drinking. I started getting arrested,
Arrested for?
uh, drunk in Publix. I have uh, they a couple of outside issues charges, um, and just the things that we get arrested for, and so the powerlessness and unmanageability. I just it After several years of I think I was arrested about a dozen or so times, which which it's not funny, John.
Right.
No,
I'm sorry.
which
It-
which those days and nights that I was in jail, those really would be the only days and nights that I would be sober, but I would draw a sober breath. I was never far from anything.
Where
And
were you
by the
living? Where were you working during this time?
San Fernando Valley, and was I don't think I held a steady job after that relationship,
Just kind of
and
hit and miss stuff.
hit and miss, and yeah, and then just kind of using people, and yeah, uh, after getting kicked out of a place that I was living, and taking advantage enough of that person that they're sick of me.
Right,
I'm going from couch to couch, and
right.
and before I know it, it's the middle of early to middle of 2009, and I'm now homeless. I'm now officially on the streets of Los Angeles, in and
Okay, so
around
you were
Hollywood.
homeless at one point too, right before in 2009, right?
Yeah, about the middle of 2009, I was homeless.
Gotcha. What was that experience? How long were you homeless?
Not long, probably about like 3 to 4 months. And I would go from I used to sleep in this park called Heritage Park across the street from the Hollywood Bowl. which I always joke it's prime real estate if you're homeless. Beautiful area. And the park that I used to sleep in, it was up on the. There are three or four stone picnic benches up on this hill that is kind of like off the sidewalk, like way off. You got to hike up there a bit, and so you're not really seen by police or anything like that. You're not really bothered up there, and these picnic benches they sit on top of this like that 2 or 3 inch cement slab. So when it rained, you didn't get muddy, from the dirt and stuff like that because you're on this concrete slab and you can stay dry. But I was going between there and um, there was this guy in this apartment who sold some outside issues. So I'd go between the streets and stay at that kind of like seedy,
Yeah.
really dingy apartment on Highland and Fountain. So I kind of go back and forth between those two places.
Okay, so let's go then to the November Thanksgiving. What was happening the days preceding that and leading up to that day? And what was your experience like coming into AA?
Yeah, so about October of 2009, I was arrested again, and and I think there were only like 2 or 3 instances where I called like my sister. It was the first time I got arrested, some other time maybe, and then this last time that I called her, they were going to. I had several warrants out of a different county, and they were gonna transport me to that county, and I didn't want to face that, I guess. So I called her and kind of begged her to bail me out. She bailed me out, and then in November or I think at the end of October, I had she took me to court, and the judge was basically he said he was through with me, and he started sentencing me to a year in jail, and he kind of stopped, and he told me that he would let me serve my time if I went to sober living,
Mm-hmm.
and at the time I had no clue what that was. I had never heard that phrase before. I had never heard those two words spoken side by side each other before, like sober living. And and I mean, I always like said like the only thing that I knew about sobriety was that it was an absolute nightmare, and I needed to the only thing that gave me any sort of confidence that I could survive this world was alcohol. And now you're taking that away from me, and it's scary. And I need to survive. That judge gave me 30 days to be checked into a sober living, come back into his courtroom clean and sober, or else he'd throw me in jail for a year. And I remember I left that courtroom with my sister. I had her drop me off at a place that she thought that I was living at. Um, which was a house that I used to rent a room from. And I told her, she gave me a plan. Okay, start calling around for places, and get into a place, this and that, this and that. I said, of course, yes, I will get started on that right away. She drove away. I went back to the streets of Hollywood. Um, the whole out of sight, out of mind, not even thinking about it, just going back to surviving, drinking, and and on November 25th, the day before my sobriety date, that's when she found me and she took me to the sober living in Covina.
Uh, that Carl's house?
That was Carl's house. That was, I think it was like, let's see, that was so it was about 5 days, 5 or 6 days before I had to be back in court proving that I was in sober living or else I'd be in jail.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, so you got there. And was it just a happy-go-lucky time as soon as you enter the house?
Oh my
Oh,
God,
good.
no.
I'm in sober
Oh my
living.
God.
This is great.
Yeah. No clue what it was. No clue what it was like. For me, it was like it was a nightmare. It was horrible. I hated it. Um, I was the only gay guy in the sober living, and so I did everything absolutely to separate myself from other people, from other human beings, and I absolutely used that in my mind. I allowed my mind to use that as an excuse as to why this wasn't going to work, and not understanding alcoholism, not knowing that I was an alcoholic. Sure, there were signs. Sure, if you were to look at the evidence of my life, everything about it screamed that I was an alcoholic. But I was not looking at the evidence of that. I was just, living in the obsession of the mind, which was, no, you're not. You just had, some things, but no, Carl has set up, in my opinion, the perfect place because it's a place that their primary purpose is to drop us off in the center of Alcoholics Anonymous and show us how to do it. You had to you entered in as phase one. How I used to joke is I can't even breathe without somebody, on a higher phase with me. But in you're on phase one for 2 weeks, and in that 2 weeks, you have to get a sponsor, and you have to have two commitments at AA meetings. And so it really shows you, they really show you and teach you how to do Alcoholics Anonymous. But you have to be a willing participant in that. And I was not a willing participant in it. All I did was I was just sitting in meetings, with my arms folded, just looking at the ground, going, "This is not going to work. This is not going to work. This is stupid. I hate these people. These people hate me. So I'm going to hate them harder and worse." And just doing all those things that that I do to separate myself from you and myself from anything. You know,
Okay, so when did it start to turn, so to speak? And when did things when did you have a different outlook besides hate? I guess I would put it that way.
John, I still have that outlook. No. um, there would be little moments. I know you could put an alcoholic, who doesn't want to get sober, who doesn't, you know, think they can anything. You could put an alcoholic in Alcoholics Anonymous, and they will hear things, right? I was sitting there with my arms for 90 days. I sat there in meetings with my arms folded, just looking at the ground and shaking my head. I hate this. This is not going to work. And every now and then I would hear things, and I would get a little, like I remember the first time it happened, it was actually Carl. I was in a meeting. Carl's sitting behind me at this meeting, and he shares. And he starts sharing, and he starts sharing about that voice that's in his head. And I remember thinking, oh my God, that guy's crazy. That guy's like truly certifiably crazy. He's got voices in his head, and he is like freely talking about the voices that are in his head. And I remember him saying, and you have that voice too. And I'm like, oh, come on now. Like, this guy's stupid. Like, what voice? And then he said, like, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, it's that voice that just went, what voice? And I like my mind blew up. I was stunned. I turned around and I stared at him, and I couldn't believe it. I could not believe what he just said. Because that's the voice that's been there my entire life. Like, that's the voice that's been telling me, you know what, Michael, you're more fun when you drink. Or, you know what, Michael, it's those people at that bar that are getting you into all this trouble. We need to go find a new bar to drink at. Or that voice that would just say, you know what, tonight we're just going to have one drink. That voice. And now this guy is sitting behind me and he's telling me that he has this voice too. And I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And I remember I was around 30 days sober. I was really new. And that voice got quieter that day, and I got comfortable. but everything returned. Like maybe for a couple of days, I was like, oh my God, I can't, like, oh my God, like these people have this voice too. That's in that same voice that I have. Right. And for a couple of days, I was a little bit comfortable and that voice was a little bit quieter, but I wasn't following it up with any action. I wasn't reading this big book that everybody was telling me to read. I wasn't calling the sponsor that I had gotten. I was just sitting in meetings, arms folded, looking at the ground and not doing anything. And so I got really uncomfortable again.
Once again, Mr. Michael, thank you so much for spending time with me. I know the listeners enjoyed that as well. And as a reminder, I mentioned it on the first part of this episode, but we will have Michael's follow-up. Well, the second part of his story next week, you will want to be sure to tune in for that. We got some twists and turns with that one, I can guarantee you. And for those of you listening out there, remember now, we don't want you sharing your toothbrush, but we would love for you to pause. And the reason I'm laughing is because I get into this mode or whatever here. And the lovely Mrs. M just walked by my office. I got a little glass, or not little glass, it's a glass door. And she heard me and saw me and was giggling at me. I don't talk to her like this at home. Say, hello, Mrs. M. That would be kind of silly, wouldn't it? But anyway, we do. She heard me talking about the sharing your toothbrush. She was just laughing. But anyway, we do not want you sharing your toothbrush, but we would love for you to pause your device, pause, and click the share button on your device and share this episode with another friend or family member. It may be just what they need today, along with Michael's second part coming on up. Anyway, enough of my silliness. Sarah writes in and she says, hi, John. It's Sarah from Canada again. And big smiley face. She says, I love the episodes with Marty C. from Canada. I used to live in Toronto and Ottawa, and I've driven through the Hamilton area where he lives. I'm coming back after 7 years sober in AA, 8 years out, and trying to get back now. I now have 33 days. But at the beginning of September, I also got 17 days, and in the last week or so of that obsession to drink was so strong that I drank again, even after doing the steps 12 and 3. So I and my sponsor concluded that I may not have gotten step 1 properly. She says she keeps saying that step 1 is the only one that you have to do completely. I don't know where it says that in the book. Maybe it does, but I just heard you say that in the second part of step 4 with step 4 episode with Marty C. That as long as you have done steps 12 and 3, even though it may not be perfect, it's not going to hurt you to consider to continue on with step 4. I agree with you, and I have no idea what I said in that episode. I'm just trusting that I said something similar to this. She says, I agree with you, and I completely agree with Marty's approach. That's the kind of approach my first sponsor took, and she also loved Mark Houston, and so do I. I've listened to a lot of him and his sponsees over the years, and when I've been sober and trying to get sober. My big question is, here comes the big question. Does Marty know any women in Canada or elsewhere who use the same kind of urgent approach and the same philosophy who might be willing to sponsor me at a distance? Right now, my sponsor has been asking me to write down all the ways in which I am powerless over alcohol, the consequences of my drinking, etc. I can't seem to do it, but I do know it when I just got back from a John Talbot retreat on Prince Edward Island, and that was amazing. And I think some kind of spiritual experience from there. Would you be able to put me in touch with Marty or copy him on this email? Marty, I'm wondering if you could refer me to a woman you think that may be helpful for me to work the steps in this way. I do mention your podcast, John, along with the Sober Shares podcast whenever I'm speaking to another alcoholic who might be listening to excellent podcasts about AA recovery. I am also thankful for both of these podcasts. I really appreciate your deep kindness, compassionate, and understanding, as well as your goofiness in the beginning. Goofiness? What are you talking about? At the beginning of your episodes, although it took me a little while to get used to that. It does most people. I'm like Scotch. I'm an acquired taste, but I get it, Sarah. She says, your guests are wonderful and you do an amazing job at interviewing them and drawing them out. Have a blessed day, Sarah. Well, God bless you, Sarah. As you know, I responded to your message and I copied the one and the only Mr. Marty C. on your email. I hope that all works out. I'm sure Morty has a lot of great resources if he can find the time to actually do something like that. Anyway, thanks for writing in, Sarah. Lara writes in, and the subject line is Oklahoma, Oklahoma, where the sun comes, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain. I don't think she's saying that when she was typing that out, but I don't know. That just came to mind. So anyway, Lara says, I was looking for a podcast related to Alcoholics Anonymous. God let me stumble upon Sober Speak, and I love your podcast, and I've listened all the way back to episode 217. It has really been a blessing for me. I'm from Oklahoma, so for me to hear Jerry, Dawn, and Cliff G was very touching. I want to contribute or donate to the podcast. Please send me a link so I can do that. Thanks, John M., for everything you do. Well, first of all, the donations are without a doubt not expected, but always appreciated. I appreciate it. And I've said this many times on the podcast. If you have a choice between donating to my silly little podcast and donating to your somehow contributing to your local AA or Al-Anon or, Sex Anonymous groups or whatever it is, whatever you're involved in there, I would much rather you give funds to them because that is where the real work is taking place. But I appreciate your sentiments there, Lara, and thank you so much for all your kind words. Okay. I think that's it, right? Is that it? Yeah, that's it. So keep coming back. It works if you work it. I take this 1 week at a time. And I'll try to be back next week, but you never can tell. Until then, may God bless you and keep you until then. And I've been trying this one out. You can't have, I guess, 4 things you say at the end, though, but I like kind of sober on. Kind of like I don't know, is that a good sign off? Is it not? Should I just leave that one out? I'll decide. That'll be between me and my higher power. But anyway, sober on. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Love you very, very much. And once again, may God bless you and keep you until we meet again. Bye-bye.